If you had superpowers, what's the funniest way you could use them to mess with people? Superman has a reputation for being a friendly, benevolent hero, but sometimes he goes out of his way to humiliate his coworkers. This is Top 10 Nerd, and today we are counting down the top 10 times Superman humiliated other heroes. Number 10. Nearly kills Aquaman in a weird competition in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, number 115. When Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen is eaten by the same whale that ate Jonah in the Bible, he develops the same superpowers as Aquaman. Jimmy uses these newfound powers to save the day when a bunch of sunken ships surface and almost crash into an aircraft carrier. Superman and Aquaman show up, and Supes asks Aquaman why he didn't handle the incident and implies that he's been slipping ever since his wife Mira disappeared. An incensed Aquaman tells Superman that he is far more powerful than Jimmy and can prove it in any test the Man of Steel comes up with. Superman takes both of them to a desert and explains that since their powers only allow them to be out of the water for an hour, and it has been 55 minutes since they were in the sea, they will soon begin to die. Whoever lasts the longest will be King of Atlantis. He leaves them to struggle and returns to taunt them with a pitcher of seawater. When Aquaman loses, Jimmy has him taken back to Atlantis. Once he's gone, Superman reveals that he is actually Proteus, the old man of the sea in disguise. So technically, this wasn't Superman, but Aquaman doesn't learn this until much later in the comic, so for a chunk of time, he thinks that Superman did all that to him. It's not actually Superman, so I put it in the number 10 slot, but honestly, this behavior wouldn't be that unusual for the Silver Age Man of Steel. Number 9 makes a smut film with Mr. Miracle's wife in Action Comics number 593. In a really bizarre story by John Byrne, Mr. Miracle comes home to Darkseid sitting in his living room. Darkseid informs him that his wife, Big Barda, has been captured and hands him a VHS tape. Mr. Miracle awkwardly crawls around on the floor to put the tape in his VCR and discovers that his wife has been hypnotized and is starring in adult films. He takes off to find his wife. The villain, Sleaze, shows up at the studio to talk to the director and reveals that he also has Superman under his control and suggests that the director use Superman and Big Barda in a film together. Mr. Miracle arrives just in time to see his wife and Superman making out in a shabby bedroom set, and he interrupts the filming. The three heroes defeat the villains, but all three of the heroes are pretty embarrassed by the situation, and Superman claims that he doesn't remember what happened while under Sleaze's control, but I think he might just be lying to get out of an awkward situation. Anyways, that's the last of these entries on the list where it isn't actually Superman or he isn't in control of his actions, so let's get into the meat of the list. Number 8, his first fight with Batman in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 2. In the story of how the Justice League came together in 2011's New 52 reboot, the heroes are all loners who don't trust each other. When Batman and Green Lantern come across a parademon and a mother box, they are unable to identify it, but realize it is of alien origin. They decide that their best bet is to go to Metropolis and talk to the only other alien they know about, Superman. Due to a misunderstanding, Superman believes that the other two heroes are somehow involved with the parademons and attacks them. Batman tries to hold his own by throwing tear gas, sonic grenades, and tasers at the Man of Steel with no effect. Superman chides the Caped Crusader, telling him, "Your belt's empty, Batman," before grabbing him by the throat and slamming him into a wall. Considering how well Batman managed to do against Superman in subsequent fights, he clearly felt this loss, and I'd argue has never felt so powerless. Number 7, his fight with Green Lantern in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 2. Continuing on from the previous entry, let's talk about how the same fight went for Green Lantern. He spent most of the flight to Metropolis bragging to Batman that he would have no problem beating the Man of Steel. When they found Superman, Hal told Batman to stay back while he handled Superman. Superman then came at him faster than a speeding bullet and more powerfully than a locomotive. While Batman was being mildly irritating at best to Superman, Green Lantern came in for round 2, tying Superman up with constructs of giant chains. Superman smirked and said, "Chains? Really? You're funny, Green Lantern," before easily shattering the construct and renewing his attack. Pretty much all of Hal's confidence shattered at this point, and he protected Batman and himself in a bubble as Superman bounced them around the city. Superman was being pretty intense about the whole situation, but thankfully a timely intervention by the Flash allowed them to recover and explain themselves to the Man of Steel. Number 6, exiles Supergirl to another planet in Action Comics number 258. When Superman's cousin, Kara Zor-El, came to Earth and revealed that he wasn't the only surviving member of his family, Superman described it as the happiest moment of his life. He then dropped her off at the orphanage and told her that she had to keep her existence a secret. She took all of this in stride and followed Superman's orders until one day she saw Krypto the Superdog flying around. She introduced herself to Krypto and the two had a fun time playing together. Then Superman showed up and started scolding her for revealing her existence. Supergirl very reasonably points out that Krypto is a dog and can't talk, let alone reveal her to the world. Superman responds by banishing her to live on an asteroid for a year in complete isolation. Supergirl stays there for a week before Krypto shows up with a note from Superman telling her that there is a storm of kryptonite dust coming to the asteroid and that she must return to the orphanage in her secret identity of Linda Lee for one day before going back to space for the rest of her exile. Linda shows up at the orphanage but finds herself in a spot of trouble when she comes across a search party that has been looking for the missing orphan. She covers herself in mud and claims to have been stranded in Dismal Swamp for the past week. She dodges reporters' questions and Superman reveals that all the shaming and sending her off into exile was an elaborate test to see if she was clever enough to figure out how to maintain a secret identity. Superman congratulates Supergirl for passing the test and she excitedly asks if this means that she no longer has to keep her existence a secret, and Superman clarifies that he never said that and tells her to continue living in secret until he damn well says so. Number 5 replaces Krypto with a different Superdog in Superboy number 109. Due to his many years in comics and his recent appearance in DC League of Super Pets, you were likely passingly familiar with Krypto the Superdog, but are you familiar with his rival, Swifty the Greyhound? Our story begins when Superboy is fiddling with his Phantom Zone projector while the imprisoned Kryptonian criminals led by General Zod are trying to affect the Boy of Steel by using mental suggestion to convince him to destroy himself. Because of his powers, Superboy isn't affected, so the Phantoms try again with Krypto to no avail. They instead brainwash a dog named Swifty and control him into making a potion that gives him superpowers. When Swifty shows up with powers, Superboy decides to put the two dogs through a series of tests to determine who is the better super pet and will get to go with him on an important space mission. The Phantom Kryptonians help Swifty so that he wins the competition. At this point, Superboy takes away Krypto's cape and gives it to the rival dog. To add insult to injury, he makes Krypto put on a damaged, moth-eaten cape and then ditches his dog to go to space with Swifty. Even Krypto thinks this is a bit much, as on the teaser page for the story, we see him thinking to himself between sobs, "Bad enough my master prefers that supermutt to me, but did Superboy have to give Swifty my snazzy, indestructible cape and make me wear this crummy, moth-eaten spare cape of his?" Swifty eventually betrays the Boy of Steel, who is saved by a timely intervention by Krypto, but that doesn't make his treatment of his dog any less weird and kinda petty. Number 4, one-upping Batman's gifts in World's Finest number 85. When the ruler of Balkania, Princess Verena, comes to America, her only desire is to see the famous heroes Superman and Batman. And if Robin is also there, that's fine. When the two heroes meet the princess, both are immediately smitten and begin competing for the beautiful princess's affection. When Batman goes out and gets her a bouquet of orchids, Superman flies to South America and gets a giant orchid for the princess. Batman gives her a large diamond ring that he bought, and Superman responds by getting a giant piece of coal and crushing it into a giant, super-sized diamond and offering it to the princess. Batman takes Verena on a tour of the city in the Batmobile, letting a very unimpressed Robin drive while he puts the Bat moves on the princess. The mood is ruined when they look at a nearby cliff that Superman has defaced by carving a giant heart with the words "S loves V." Batman goes to the train station with the princess so she can move on from Metropolis to Gotham, but before he can get on the train, Superman picks up the train and flies it to Gotham, leaving Batman to frantically chase after them in the Batplane. When they discover that the princess is actually in love with her bodyguard, Captain Stefan, the heroes claim that they were just pretending to be rivals in order to better protect her, but come on. Even if that is the case, that doesn't mean Superman had to go so all out on making Batman look like a fool in front of the princess and the entire world. Number 3, making Robin his court jester in World's Finest number 165. When the evil King Wolf escapes from prison, he claims to his men that he is dying. He devises a competition for his henchmen to determine who the new king of crime will be. They must complete 3 robberies, and whoever pulls off the robbery best will be the new king. Batman and Superman suspect that the king is lying about his condition and decide to help the criminals with their robberies in hopes that the king will reveal his true plan. Batman and Robin take out one of the henchmen, and Batman disguises himself as the goon in order to infiltrate infiltrate the gang. One of the other criminals disguises himself as Superman in order to pretend to stop a robbery and take the loot as evidence. In order to make sure he wins the competition, Batman knows he has to pull off a spectacular crime, and well in disguise as the Goon, disguises himself as Batman and holds himself hostage, threatening to have himself killed if the submarine he's robbing doesn't hand over the ship's supercomputer. Robin pretends to not know what's going on, and Batman pretends to capture him and takes him back to the King's hideout. Okay, if you're confused, don't worry, it gets worse. Batman ties with the criminal who is disguised as Superman, who unbeknownst to Batman actually is Superman, and both are crowned the new kings of crime. When asked what his first royal decree is, Superman immediately says he wants to see Robin killed. Like, honestly, it comes to mind a little too fast. Batman is able to claim that since he captured Robin, he should get to decide his fate, and suggests that they make him the new court jester. Superman agrees, and Robin is forced to dress as a jester and perform for the court of criminals, while Batman and Superman tool around. Now, Dick Grayson was a circus performer before becoming a hero, but it's still weird that Superman and Batman made him dress up and give them a full show before making any effort to figure out the criminal's plan. Number 2 frames Batman for witchcraft in World's Finest number 186 and 187. When Batman and Superman go back in time to colonial times, they come across a woman who had been accused of witchcraft and is about to be dunked in the town pond. Superman moves too fast to be seen and goes into the water and uses his steel-like teeth to gnaw through the dunking mechanism. Batman then dives into the water and rescues the woman. She is smitten with Batman and gives him a kiss. Superman thinks to himself, "Isn't that just like a woman? I did the work and Batman's collecting the goodies." In retaliation, the Man of Steel disguises himself as Batman and starts flying around the town on a broomstick. He then uses his super speed to make it look like Batman has turned coal to diamonds, and uses his super ventriloquism to make it look like a black cat is accusing Batman of being an agent of Satan. As an impartial out-of-towner, Superman is chosen to prosecute a very confused Batman. He has Batman put in the stocks and sentences him to be burnt at the stake. When Batman is tied to the stake, Superman uses his heat vision to start the fire, claiming that it is further proof of Batman's demonic powers. Batman is eventually able to make the townsfolk think that Superman is the witch and is set free. Superman tells Batman that he saw that he had been possessed by a demon and was putting Batman in danger to scare the demon out of his body. But as the reader, we can read Superman's thought bubbles during the frame job, and he really does think about how jealous he is that the woman has chosen Batman over him, and is laughing and giggling to himself as Batman begs him to stop the townsfolk from carrying him away in chains. So even if he had a good reason to put Batman in danger, he's getting way too much joy out of it. Number 1 forces Jimmy Olsen to marry a gorilla in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 98. For anyone claiming Jimmy Olsen doesn't count as a hero, I would remind you that Jimmy has saved Superman's life several times and has developed superpowers even more times, so I'm counting him. In Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 98, Jimmy and Clark are on assignment in the African jungle where a blockbuster movie is being filmed. The film crew is using the local natives as extras, and in exchange are showing the natives a different jungle movie every night. The natives worship a sacred ape named Bruna, who comes into the camp and is enamored with the showing of King Kong. When Jimmy dresses up in a Tarzan costume and begins swinging from vines in an attempt to convince the director to give him a role in the movie, he gets trapped by an underwater pool of quicksand. He is rescued by Bruna, the sacred ape, who is immediately smitten with the young cub reporter. The ape tries to woo Jimmy, even bringing him a bouquet of bananas, but Jimmy runs away. The sacred ape goes on a rampage after losing her chosen mate, and Superman decides that the best thing for everyone would be if Jimmy just goes along with it until he can figure out a plan. He drops Jimmy off with the ape and brings them a fruit basket as an engagement gift. Jimmy's girlfriend, Lucy Lane, shows up and makes the ape a bridal veil. Just when things can't seem to get any worse for Jimmy, Superman shows up dressed as a witch doctor to perform the ceremony while the movie crew films the whole thing. Bruna eventually tires of Jimmy and throws him off a cliff, and he is rescued by the Man of Steel, but I think we can all agree that Superman let this one go on a little too far before he intervened. Any other times where Superman embarrassed his fellow heroes? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more Top 10 Nerd.